All right, Noah. Well, you recently won your first bodybuilding competition that you ever entered.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh. What got you into wanting to do bodybuilding in the first place?
So bodybuilding, really weird story. So I was a high schooler. I didn't do anything. I was a band kid and I was super anorexic. I didn't eat anything. So as soon as I graduated high school, I was looking for some way to really change my life. And I stepped for the first time into the gym. It was one of my first a New Year's resolution that stuck, so to speak. I entered the gym, started lifting. I just wanted to get bigger. And after about a year of doing that, I was at a Planet Fitness, and then I moved to Gold's Gym when it was still around. And really, I was just meeting a ton of really cool people, and it was just a really good journey. And a couple of people I've ran into were talking about this bodybuilding thing and how it changed their lives. So I finally was like, I'm going to find out more about this. And I met one of my good friends, Justin, at Gold's at the time. And he was a bodybuilder. He'd been competing for 2-3 years at the time. And he really introduced me to the training style, talked to me a lot about the diet and what goes into that. And then at the very end of like the carrot and the stick is like, oh, and then you step on stage. And it was a really interesting change of like, well, now I'm going from improving myself to showing off my work. It was a really interesting story. So I traveled with him for the next 2 years to a place called Iron Haven in Carlisle, which was an old school bodybuilding gym. I had been living and working in that area at the time. And then I recently started working at, well, I guess 3 years ago now, Susquehanna School District where I teach. And I found Train Yard as my home gym because it was the closest and best facility with the greatest community I could find in the area. And that's really the evolution of my bodybuilding passion. But it was a year ago now. I just met my best friend Zach Klein here at Train Yard, mm-hmm. and he and I had been talking and getting lunch and talking about like bodybuilding because he and I were both doing the same thing. But we were finally like, we're going to commit. We're going to do a show. So we committed to a show a year out, which ended up being the competition I just competed at in Virginia on October 13th. And it was all downhill from there. Everything just came speeding at me.
Oh my gosh. So what was the hardest part of the process of getting ready for the show?
So initially for me, it was changing my mindset from the anorexia of I don't want to eat, I don't want to get fat, to I need to eat to put muscle on. I need to eat. I was eating 35 to 4,000 calories during bulks, upwards of 5,500 calories on like a refeed type of day when I'm getting extra calories in just to fuel the process. And then again, it was the mindset of the diet when it came down to preparing for that bodybuilding show, stepping on stage. It was 20 weeks of a very strict diet where I was eating no more than 1,700 calories a day, which is way below my metabolic rate, my basal metabolic rate. And it just got worse and worse physically for me as we got closer to the show date. It was really, really hard to work through that period, especially at the end.
What did keep you going through that?
What kept me going through that? So the greatest thing I can recommend for somebody that is doing anything with a diet, period, is have a support system. People checking in on you with, hey, are you staying on your diet? Do you need a break? Do you need somebody to talk to about it? I am very lucky that my family is very on board. My parents and my brothers are all very communicative. They talk to me through the whole process. My fiance at the time and now wife is completely okay with everything I do in regards to bodybuilding and helps me with the meal prep when I'm too tired to do it, especially at the last 3 weeks were miserable for me. She encourages me to stay on the diet. And then she also, on the flip side, is like, hey, you've been killing it. You've been on track for the last 3 weeks straight. Have a cookie. Take a break for yourself.
The cookie got you through. Yeah.
The cookie does, like, it's amazing how good food tastes after being on an extreme diet for so long. But it's definitely those connections that keeps you in the mentality and keeps you pushing through everything.
Yeah. Were you at all surprised that you won, or were you feeling confident going into it?
So I did not bring the best package I could have ever brought, but it was the first package I brought. So I was very proud of what I did bring. That being said, I walked into the show without expectations. I really walked into it as, hey, this is the first time I'm going to compete. I don't want to hold myself to a standard and become heartbroken. I just want to step on stage. Mm-hmm. I want to experience it, feel all of the emotions of being on stage, going through the process. Ultimately, this first show was for me to figure out, hey, am I going to keep stepping on stage, or is this just going to be a one-time thing for me? Mm-hmm. Placing first in novice definitely plays into it, and placing top 3 in the open category all play into me wanting to do it again. However, all the negative that went with it, I was able to grasp and overcome every step of the way because of those connections, and it really opens my mind to, I am getting pretty good at this. I'm enjoying the process, even when it's hard and when it sucks. And I don't think I'm going to walk away from it. I think it's going to stick with me for a while.
That's great. So what would you say, what advice would you give to somebody who's facing, wanting to do something physically or just kind of any scary goal? Absolutely. What have you learned that you could pass along?
Yeah, so through this process, there's 2 or 3 big takeaways that I've taken that will help anyone. The first one is to commit to it. Pick a date. It doesn't have to be far off like me. I picked a year out. That's pretty crazy. Pick a date 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. Work towards that first goal and make it little milestones. Don't look at the end goal. Look at the milestones on the way. Oh, I've lost 2 pounds. That's awesome. I'm on my way to 20. That's 10%. Or for my example, or somebody in powerlifting or something like that, pick a competition day. Like, hey, I'm going to go compete. And then once you put a day on the calendar, it changes everything. It's like, now I have to ramp it up. The second piece is really making sure that those connections around you are there, because if you don't have them, you will allow yourself to fall and you will start hurting the people around you unintentionally. Being miserable from dieting or being in the gym every day and getting injured, those are all things that are preventable by communicating with people around you. And those are the biggest things that will affect whether your performance in a competition, in daily life, gym, home life, anything. And then the third piece that I think is really, really important is to take breaks. You're allowed to take a moment for yourself. That cookie, you're allowed to have a little cheat here and there, as long as it's not detracting and all consuming. Like if I went during my prep and I was like, I'm going to eat a whole box of cookies, that would have completely ruined everything I was doing. That comes down to a little bit of self-control, and you can build that self-control over time by slowly introducing it and be like, oh, I'm only going to have 1 cookie now. I'm going to put the box completely away so I don't see it. Mm-hmm. Whether that's a rest day, knowing that, oh, I've been working 5 days this week. I've got 3 days in the gym. Today would be my 4th day, and I normally go 6 days a week, but I'm going to take today off. Your body needs to recover. Your mind needs to recover. And all of that comes down to taking those moments for yourself, whether it's the cheat meal, the day off from the gym, and it can be applied to work too. Like, I can't do this project right now, or I need to take a 15-minute break and come back to it. It applies to life as well, not just the gym.
Well, thank you so much for your insights. Yeah. This is really inspiring to see what you've accomplished.
Thank you.
And we love having you at Train Yard.
It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to see what comes next.
All right.